Our campus had quite a response to your talk, and this week the Daily Cal, the student newspaper, published an anti-Semitic cartoon. It's very Nazi-like, very primitive, vile, and a lot of students are outraged by this. It honestly looks like it could have come from the Daily Stormer or any neo-Nazi website. So my question is, where does freedom of speech end and incitement to hate crime or violence begin? What is the legality of this, and how do we combat it on campus?
Well, thank you for your great question and for your questions that you asked during the time that I was at Berkeley. Look, freedom of speech includes freedom to be hateful, and the cartoon, as vile and despicable as it was, is protected by freedom of speech, particularly since Berkeley is a public university. The newspaper that published it claims to be the newspaper of record for the city of Berkeley. And of course, they had the right to publish this vile cartoon. They also had the right not to publish the cartoon, and they made a decision to publish it. My response has been not to try to suppress it or to try to censor it, but to actually publicize it, let it be seen around the world, and let the people, the artists, the anti-Semitic artists who drew it, the bigoted editors who allowed it to be published, let them be held responsible in the public opinion. Let them have to answer to employers and to universities that they apply to. Let them be held accountable for what they've done. The university has done the right thing. The chancellor of the university issued a strong statement condemning the vile caricature. The dean of the law school issued a statement condemning the swastika that had been drawn on my face on a poster. But the important point to remember is the speech I was making was a very centrist speech. I started out by saying that I support a state for the Palestinian people based on a compromise, negotiated peace with security for Israel. And yet, even my moderate speech is protested by grotesque anti-Semitic symbols such as the swastika and the kind of spider-like caricature of me stomping on a Palestinian child and holding in my hand an IDF soldier who was murdering a Palestinian youth in cold blood. Let the world know that these caricatures exist, that there are students at the University of California at Berkeley who subscribe to this form of bigotry, and let them be held accountable. I am not afraid of the truth, and I'm not even afraid of falsehoods as long as I have an opportunity to respond with truth. The best answer to falsehoods is truth, not censorship.
Thanks, Professor. I mean, I can only imagine what it must have felt like to see something like that. Well, joining us now in the studio is Leah Lands, who works for CAMERA on campus, the Committee for Accuracy in Middle East Reporting in America. Now, Leah, can you tell me, how CAMERA got involved in this specific case at Berkeley and maybe some of your previous experience on that campus?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me, first of all. So our students are always constantly monitoring the issues on the ground on every campus, particularly in the US, but across the world. And we had spoken with our students there at the campus, including one of our former CAMERA fellows, prior to the event happening, and arranged for them to attend the event and to monitor it for any issues, and they will be following up with a response in their campus paper, the same paper that this cartoon was in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, yeah, go ahead. Did you want to say something, Professor?
CAMERA does great work. Committee for Accuracy in Media Reporting in the Middle East, they are phenomenal. They are started in Boston. I was on their original board. They do work all over the world, and particularly on college campuses. And I just think it's very important to expose these things. Some of them occur secretly. There have been worse cartoons of me that appeared in smaller newspapers, grotesque Nazi-like cartoons, and they don't get the attention that Berkeley gets, and Berkeley should get it because it's training our future leaders. And if students see these kinds of things without responses from truth-telling people, they may come to believe that some of these things are actually accurate, and of course they're not.
Now, Leah, I'd also like to ask you, what is CAMERA doing to defend Israel on other campuses around the United States and maybe even around the world?
Sure, of course. So we have students, like I said, monitoring issues for positive and negative Israel-related activity across the US and in the UK now, especially as well. For example, just last spring, we had a news come that Linda Sarsour would be speaking on campus at Dartmouth. And so what we did is we prepared our students with research from our team of researchers, and we provided flyers for the students to distribute on campus. And not only that, but we had a student who is now a camera fellow this year. We had him ask Linda Sarsour a question at her event during the Q&A period, during which she was absolutely unable to answer the question, and her response to him was, "Well, you're a white man." So it was a very great opportunity for us to be able to expose this woman for her hypocrisy when it comes to women's rights.
Yeah, well, it's just interesting because, you know, it comes down to education. That's essentially what you're trying to do, is educate students. And obviously, Professor Dershowitz, you've been trying to do a lot of work on this and spread that memo, right?
Yeah, well, a lot of work, but remember, too, that it also exposes the double standard. The Berkeley newspaper, the Cal, would never have published a cartoon comparably hateful of women, of blacks, of gays, of Muslims. So they can't hide behind freedom of speech. They can't say, well, we had an obligation to publish this. They had no obligation. Freedom of speech is freedom to publish or not to publish if you're a newspaper. And I challenge the Cal, and I've done it in an op-ed that I've written to them, and let's see if they actually believe in freedom of speech and publish my op-ed. But in my op-ed, I challenge them as to whether they would have published a comparably vicious cartoon that caricatured in this way a woman or a black man or a black woman or a gay person or a transgendered person, and what the university would have done in response. There would have been outrages, there would have been marches, there would have been demonstrations all over the campus. And all we have here is, yes, an appropriate response from the dean of the law school and the chancellor of the university, and praise to them for doing it. But we don't have responses from left-wing students, left-wing student organizations. The organization Students for Justice for Palestine took that cartoon and put it on their website, promoting it. And so they wouldn't promote something that was a stereotype of any other group. And so we see very visibly a double standard when it comes to anti-Semitism and hate speech toward Jews practiced on many university campuses.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, Leah, and we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, right, regarding this specific case.
Thank you.